generally, Heda, of course, you all know, Heda means learning the philosophical systems of that what we practice. And generally, in the Buddha teaching, and particularly in Nyingma system, always the studying and the practice goes by together, not separated. What you studying, that you practice. What you practice, you started, you learn. So the studying is not just an intellectual kind of skeptical idea that left aside and just only used kind of kind of like some kind of professional or kind of like surviving purpose of these lives. But what we're studying is we practice, we observe that, and we carry that, and then observe that in our mental state of the nature of the mind. And that is what we started, and that's what we practice. So practice is also not we just practicing blindly and then just what was said and just follow that. We learn what we practicing and search behind meaning what we are practicing. And that is what really in the Buddha's teaching, and particularly in Nyingma system. The studying and the practice goes together. So therefore, Heda is what we started. We're studying. What we're studying? We're studying to use to practice. And practice, what of course we all know, what means practice? Practice means bring the inner result, any result. Result, what is result? Result is joy, happiness, and happiness and joy to the others. It's not joy and happiness is restricted, and joy and happiness that we expand it and share that to everyone, so everyone will catch that ignite qualities. In a way, we become as clay luminosity light, lamp. The lamp will illuminate ourselves, like that will illuminate it, and that will help to illuminate others, because others have the same potential, same nature we illuminate. That is the purpose in the teaching of the Buddha. So that we all have the equal realization, because basically equal, every living being is the same, equal. There is no really difference at all. Everyone has the same nature. Therefore, everyone is longing for the joy and happiness. Everyone is want to be removed the suffering, sadness. They don't like that, because we share the same feeling, because we have the same nature, same thing, sameness, everyone. And therefore, this practice makes ourselves a joy, happiness, and then share that others, and bring that their realization goal. And that again, happiness and joy is not just a temporary things. And as you know, that when in the teaching said, we all inherited Buddha nature. Buddha nature, Tathagata Garbha, or any to call it of the nature. Nature. And that nature is free from all the duality, free from the negativities such as obscurations, ego clingings, self-importance, and greed. Is completely freed, because those are not nature. Nature is freed. When you freed of all those negativities, the Buddha nature itself is joy. What you have been named is joy, is happy, is peaceful, is totally openness, totally brilliant wisdom, great compassion, loving kindness. That is the nature that we all inherited. And for that purpose, every Buddha teaching is designed for that, to go, to reveal that natures. When we started in the Buddha's teaching as like 4 schools of the Tibetan, four schools of the Buddhism, such as Vivashika, Sutantrika, and mind-only school, and Madhyamaka. Every teaching, whatever the Buddha used techniques according to the readiness of the individual is, but goal is to free of those negativity and the dualities and reveal the inner quality according to their readinesses. And such as like then in the like such as Vivashika school, or first like Hinayana, always we say the Sharvakaya, and they free from the ego clingings. Once you remove the ego clinging, you reach then arhathood. Arhathood. And that is what their goal. And that when you free from the ego, what it brings? Then it brings peace, the nirvana, free from the suffering. Nirvana means free from suffering and difficulty. It's ended all sufferings. The ego clinging, the ego or this self-important, that is the troublemaker. And when you free that, then the nirvana, peace, total tranquility, it comes. That is what the practice is. And there is also practice, way to practice. And of course, in the teaching always mentioned how to pursue those practices. There is a conduct, there is a will, there is application, and then follow that. And you receive it. You reach the goal of the arhathood. And then beside that, the Shavaka and then such as like Party Buddhas. Again, Party Buddha practices. What they practice? They practice again similar things, but with focus with 12 interdependent coordination systems. Reversing that interdependent coordination system, because 12 lengths of the interdependent coordination is the source of all the troubles. When you reverse that, and then it stops one after another. That is how it begins. It comes continuation. When you reverse that, it stops. And that's through that technique, they get the realization of the egolessness, and as well as the realization of the great emptiness of the external phenomena existing. Sometimes in the teaching said 1.5 realization of the great natures, not completely. In a way, like 3/4 of the realization they achieved of the true nature of the great as true nature or the great emptiness. And then we moved to the mind-only school. We moved to mind-only school, and as well as mind-only school is the Mahayana schools. Again, it's based absolutely on the great compassion, loving kindness, and bring everything as the mental display of the mind. Everything what we perceive, poem, song, space, or another way, all the tangible things, everything is really display of our own mind. Originally it started. Once we got that realization clearly, this is illusion displays. It's just, on one way, it's just tricking us, in a way. Tricking mind itself by the creator, by mind itself. When you discover that nature exactly as it is, and then they reach the enlightened status and see the mind is the only the source of everything. Mind itself is free from the two dualities, subject and object, the inequality realization. That is the mind-only school, and they reach the enlightenment qualities. And then we move to the Mahayana schools, such as Madhyamaka schools, which is, again, the second Mahayana schools. And their realization is totally, again, free from all the emptiness, free from all the complexity status. Everything is freed. Everything, subject and object, everything, extreme, every kind of negations, every positive, whatever we hold and grasp, clinging, is freed, totally. And then even the mind itself is totally free from anything existing, and relax in that nature state, and then discovered in the realization of the true natures. And then we move to the such as Kriya Tantra, outer tantras, 3 outer tantras, and again, then Kriya Tantra, in the 3 outer tantra or inner tantra, all is known as then the Vajrayana teachings. This is the all Vajrayana teachings. And from this Vajrayana teaching, what we learned, and instantly we see is all display of the nature of the mind. Everything is a display of the nature of the mind. Mind is already enlightened status, therefore it is a display, emanation is totally enlightened status. There's nothing is really obscured that. And with that kind of as a foundation, but then it applies practices as a Buddhas, such as 3 Buddhas or whatever the Buddha we practices, and visualize those Buddhas right in front of us as our great teacher or as Buddha, and we were served as like obscure beings for the time being until we reach that realizations. As principle deity, or as always in the teaching said, as a great teacher, we visualize the deities in front of us, and then ourselves as beginning practitioners, as like kind of that with great honor and respect. We practice, and then with their blessings, with the blessings of the Buddhas, enlightened beings, then eventually, then we reach that similar realization of that Buddha, what we practice. Those are basically outer tantras ideas. And then we move to the inner tantras. Inner tantra, Mahayoga, Anuyoga, we move. Mahayoga and Anuyoga teachings are inner tantra teachings. And which is, again, similarly, everything is display of the true nature of the mind. Everything is enlightened status. Form, sound, space, mind, all are enlightened status. There's nothing is not enlightened status. There's nothing really need anything to change any styles, except we have to re-strengthen it, reconnect it is nature as it is. With that is what we need to do. That's what the teaching said. We continually meditate and practice that. And this meditation has then two things generally. Those are known as the visualization practice of the creative stages and complete stage practice of the dissolving stage practice. Those are the two things involved. Two kind of stage practices that apply. With that practice, we reach the realization of the true nature. Nature, or as it is, total enlightened status that we achieved. These practices, generally now, these practices, the visualization aspect of the practices, what is this? This is, then we need this follow with sadhanas and stockings, particularly ceremonial things. And again, the dissolving stage practices of the completion stage practices is like, this is Dzogchen practices. Dzogchen practices, there's nothing more particular need ceremonial, ritual things too much. Even though there is some degree of the ritual ceremonies, but not too much involved. Once you get the realization, or once you got the introduced to the nature of the mind, or once you receive the enlightened that teaching of the Dzogchen, then you practice. You're practicing of this Tukyu practice with the 4 abiding techniques. And those are known as then the mountain-like abiding, ocean-like abiding, and then display or the perception as abiding as perception as it is, and then abiding everything is within the single state of the rupa state. So 4 great abiding techniques, discovering innate nature as it is without regarding or accepting anything, be as in that nature status. Those are the two practices. All the Toga practices within 4 different regions, techniques, as you introduce it, and you get the realization one after another that there's nothing too much involved of the ritual ceremonies things. And now these Dzogchen practice teachings that we receive so many times again. Throughout the teaching, you received or we give the teachings on the Dzogchen, one after another. We give the teachings on the will, we give the teachings on the meditation, we give the teachings on the conduct and the result things.